how do you guys enable a customer that has OT assets that they need to protect?
So it's not an easy answer because, as you said, OT are usually very complex infrastructures that are very old. I mean, many times we can see Windows XP or Windows 3.11 in OT networks are still running, and they are critical part of the infrastructure. So I guess that's what our approach is as any OT security architect. Of course, they don't want to install anything in the OT network because sometimes even scanning OT device like a PLC, you can bring the entire network down just by scanning with an Nmap. I mean, nothing more.
Right.
Because it's very old and it's very limited in memory and resource and hardware. So what our approach is try to combine putting something in the OT network that is very light, like some breadcrumbs or some emulations of PLCs, but also at the same time running real OT devices like HMIs or even others like antennas or anything that is used in that specific OT environment, because depending on the sector is different. I mean, like electrical substation will have different OT devices than a manufacturer. So we need to try to use the same ones and then play a bit with the idea of getting telemetry from them, instrumenting like a Windows XP. So for instance, we have now support for Windows XP because some of the customers, they are requesting that in OT.
Yeah.
So running or being able to extract something from Windows XP is a challenge, but we are now capable to do that. So the idea is to try to mix something very light with deploying the OT network, plus something that we have the classic IT approach in the OT network that would be having that Windows 7 or Windows XP with an HMI, with a database that is instrumented so we can collect telemetry from those devices too. And sometimes we've seen in some of our customers that they have some gateways from IT to OT, that they use for connecting to check and monitor the OT environment.
Yeah.
So also we use a lot of such environments in that gateway, in those gateways, because we have detected many even red team activity or attackers activity in those gateways, because many times the incident starts in the IT because perhaps the OT is not connecting to the internet, and many occasions is not connected to the internet. So, but the IT is, or at least employees are connected to the internet. So many times the attack starts with an employee in the IT network, and they use those gateways to connect to the OT. So trying to deploy environments in those IT, OT gateways also something that we do.
So perhaps something like a Guacamole or Zona systems that are the proxy into the OT environment.
Yes, something similar to those that they use them as a jump host, or even they use that for SCADA jump services. So many times that's for us is our sweet spot, because many attackers will use
That's the entry point.
Yeah, that's the entry point for the OT network. Because to be honest, it's difficult that someone connects to the OT network without using those jump houses. So that's something we did. For instance, we did in one of our customers, we connected an electrical substation to the internet with the same stuff that we're using in the substation, like the antennas, the protections. The only difference is that wasn't connecting to the main power. I mean, wasn't connected to the electrical main grid line. But everything was the same. And they were using, in this case, was a VPN, so that the people from the IT, from the OT, they were able to connect remotely because it was a remote substation. So, but the VPN was unpatched, was an old version that they had, because it's as for everyone, it's sometimes difficult to patch all the systems, and these critical systems like VPNs are difficult to patch sometimes. So there was an unpatched version of a VPN, a very famous vendor, and then of course we were waiting for some days, but after 2-3 weeks, there was one attacker that first connected to the VPN, was able to compromise. The exploit was able to create an admin account in the VPN, but then everything stopped. So we didn't see any more activity, like in 2-3 weeks after the incident. But then someone came back and was able to connect to the network that was behind the VPN. Most laterally, they were checking, in this case, what I remember was a Windows 7 with an HMI. So they connected to Windows 7. They were running some queries to the HMI, so checking that everything was real. And then when they collected all the information they needed, they left. So, and we settled everything down after that. But our expectation was that perhaps we were going to see more stuff. But within that, that person or that group was just checking which type of access they had to this specific OT environment. And then perhaps they were selling that access to other people. But that was a real incident.
Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't really think about that. The original person could have been one component, and the second wave could have been a different component, because they could have went on the dark web and said, hey, I've got access to this environment, who's the highest bidder, right?
Yeah.
And so it's the calm before the storm. So catching that and then having weeks or months, you could have a patient adversary that's smart and doesn't want to tip their hand, or you could have somebody out there selling credentials and access on the dark web.
Yeah, I think that could be more the typical example, as happens in ransomware. No, I think it's the same example. But in this case, I guess the second actor was able to run some queries against the HMI, so they have some OT knowledge. That was the difference. But yeah, I think that you need to have patience. I think that's important for deception environments too, because you cannot expect to get, I don't know, incredible TTPs and IOCs in day one after you deploy something, because it takes time. People are, I mean, they are afraid to connect to some place that could be a deception environment. The people that are advanced, of course, they can detect that more or less easily. So the idea is that, of course, you need to have patience, because they will come back. Sometimes what we do is perhaps we detonate some malware sample in one of our environments, malware samples that we know that belongs to a specific APT group, so that then we let this malware run for days, weeks, because sometimes it needs days or weeks so that someone can come back, connect back to the machine, and then they, of course, they execute some commands or do something. But it's something you need to have patience. I mean, you cannot expect to see the threat actor come back in the second day after you detonate the malware. Sometimes it takes weeks, because that's the way perhaps they know that it's a real thing, not that it's something that is sitting there for weeks. So they say, okay, there could be something that is real. It's not a sandbox. It's not a security company trying to get information from me. So I guess that we need to try to combine the technology plus like patience sometimes of waiting for the attacker to come back.
Well, also, it sounds like there's even some thought logic behind passively deploying CounterCraft and letting it do what it does and waiting for a real adversary to come. But it also provokes a thought from my perspective that perhaps you go and set up a decoy jump host, sell those credentials on the dark web. I'm guessing someone who's willing to pay for that is probably nefarious.
Yeah.
And you're therefore baiting somebody into your deception environment so you can learn from them in real time. So you could passively deploy and wait for somebody real that's trying, or you could go out there and create your own circumstances that you're in control of as well. So you can actively and passively use CounterCraft and create campaigns and breadcrumbs and things of that nature that you can learn from in real time while you're waiting on somebody who's going to do it on their own regardless.
Yeah, definitely. That could be a good example too.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.